Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am excited that you're joining me today. We're going to dive right into today's episode. I'll save announcements for afterwards so that you don't miss a thing and you don't have to fast forward. But we are going to dive into a topic that was submitted on my anonymous link on Instagram. So probably about a week ago, I asked people to send in things that they want me to cover on Instagram, in which they did. And I'm going to be recording those episodes for you. One, because I am getting ready to go out of town. I'm actually scheduled to go back to Kentucky for a longer period of time, which I'm excited about. And I just wanted to make sure you all had episodes so that I don't have to think about the podcast when I'm there, but you all don't have to miss out on any of the goodies. So one of the anonymous topics that came in that I found interesting, and I say interesting because I wish I had a little bit more context. I'm going to do my best to share my thoughts on this episode based on the submission, but I think what I should preface with is I have no details outside of what this person wrote in, and I am basically what my brain will do, and I'm actually going to refer back to this in this episode, but what my brain is now going to have to do is fill in the blanks with things that I think it could be in order to make it relatable. So the challenge is this person may not even mean it in the way that I'm going to share it, but I don't have any deeper context or backstory to know exactly what this may be about. So I'm going to do my best with the little details that I have. And what came through was this: how to tell the truth when the consequences could be devastating. Okay? How to tell the truth when the consequences could be devastating. Now, what I imagine for all of you listening is your brain has probably filled in numerous possibilities of what this could be. Okay? You may be thinking right now, oh, it's probably this, or oh, it's probably that. And I just want to remind you, we have no idea what this is about, but I'm going to do my best to make this episode about how you would tell the truth when you anticipate devastating consequences and why you would hesitate to tell the truth when you anticipate some devastating consequences. So here's the thing about telling the truth on anything, okay? Telling the truth in any scenario, any situation, requires a level of vulnerability that ultimately means exposing yourself to immense judgment or potential judgment. Telling the truth is one of the most vulnerable things we can do, and one of the hardest positions sometimes to put ourselves in as humans. Because no matter what we're telling the truth about, no matter what it is, the visibility at which we're exposed feels daunting, okay? When we're telling the truth, what we're ultimately doing is subjecting ourselves to the opinions and judgment of other people, in which we cannot control another person's thinking or how they're going to receive or respond to our truths, okay? So, what the human mind does in order to avoid this feeling of exposure and vulnerability and the equivalent of standing in a stadium but naked, that's how I like to think about telling the truth, right? It feels like you're standing in a stadium and you're fully exposed, you're fully butt naked. And people get to just think whatever they want to think and judge whatever they want to judge and say whatever they want to say and respond how they want to respond. And when we can't control that, what the human mind does is say, I think it would be better to just hold in this truth, okay? Withhold the truth or lie. So I'm either going to internalize my truths or I'm going to lie about it if I'm confronted, okay? So I have to tell you, like, one of my biggest peeves in life is when people lie. I find it really hard to recover in a relationship when someone lies to me, no matter how painful the truth may be. And that's been my work, right? If someone lies to me, how do I deeply forgive them or work through that when I'm not so sure I can trust them to ever tell me the truth again? That's been a huge thing my entire life in multiple relationships. But a part of me doing this work has also been the study and the understanding of why people lie to begin with. And it's exactly the reason I just told you. You know, I had to even think about why I've lied, because as much as I hate when people lie to me, I have told lies, right? I think all of us at some point, whether it's been major or minor or a little white lie, it's a lie. And I remember early on in my coaching journey, my coach posed the question to the group of, are you a liar? Would you consider yourself a liar? And all of the women in this group, myself included, were like, no, absolutely not. It's not cool to lie. And, you know, she kept prompting and she said, but have you ever told a lie? And, you know, we're kind of like, well, yeah, but like little ones, you know, like little white lies, like, for instance, I'm running late because there was so much traffic, when really the truth is I'm running late because I stopped at Starbucks, because I really wanted a coffee, because I didn't care if I was going to be late, because being late was the, you know, least important thing on my mind compared to getting coffee, right? And what she said was, you know, whether it's a big lie or a little white lie, if you do that all the time, that becomes a part of your personality. You become a liar. So just watch in your life every time you're not willing to practice the skill of vulnerability, and instead you start telling lies. And it brought me back to my little white lies, because speaking of the coffee example, that was me in college. It never failed that at least once a week on my way to occupational therapy school, I would decide with the 10 minutes that I had in order to arrive on time, if I was going to risk it and see if Starbucks could get my drink done within 3 to 4 minutes, and I knew that I could make it, or if they ran over, I knew that I would be getting to the parking lot late, and I knew that I would be walking in and disrupting class and my professor. And there were some days where in my head, the stress of grad school, the stress of personal life stuff that was going on at that time, it was just like, I just want a coffee today. But the truth was, I didn't leave the house any earlier. I didn't wake up any earlier to make sure that I had time. I would just look at my clock, see maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes that I had to get to class, whip into the Starbucks drive through and pray that they were having a fast day. And on the days where they weren't, and I would walk into class late, the shame of feeling, my classmates stare, not that they really cared, I don't think, but the stare of my professor, knowing I'm walking in when they've started a lesson and that it does distract the class, felt so shameful for me, especially as a people pleaser back then, that it just was easier to say something like, oh my gosh, there was so much traffic, or oh my gosh, there was like a wreck. And you guys, no, that wasn't the case. So I remember when my coach, brought this up, thinking about it and being like, yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter if it's a big major lie or if it's little white lies that you just tell here and there. As a part of my character, as a part of my highest self, I don't want to be a liar, especially because I don't like when people lie to me. I understand why they lie to me, because they're not willing to feel all of the emotions of telling the truth. And the same is true for us. So this person that submitted this blurb knows that if they tell the truth to whomever they would tell it to about whatever topic it involves, that they fear that the consequences would be devastating. I imagine that they think it might be a loss of a friendship, a loss of a partnership, a loss of something. Like and again, this is my brain filling in. I don't have context, but I would imagine that there is someone they're not being 100% truthful with for whatever reason, big or small. And their belief is, if I am truthful, if I show up vulnerable, if I let them see me, quote unquote, naked, right? Like exposed, full of truth, they're not going to be happy about that truth. And they may even choose to live a life without me in it if I tell them that truth. And what that actually involves, it's really devastating for both parties, right? It's always devastating for the person that is being lied to for whatever reason, because they're not being given the respect of knowing the truth. But on the other side, it's also devastating for the person that feels like I can't be truthful for whatever reason. I always think that is sad as well, whether that's an internalized thing or it's true that maybe someone on the receiving end may not be able to hold space for someone's truth. Okay? Because the thing about telling the truth is it's really truly, I know it sounds like it shouldn't be that hard to tell people the truth, but do you know what impacts our ability to ultimately tell the truth? Our emotional intelligence. And do you know what actually impacts our ability to be receivers of really hard, painful truths? Our emotional intelligence. Everything about this comes down to our emotional intelligence as humans. It takes emotional intelligence to hold space, to hear where someone is coming from, and to listen in a place of neutrality without judgment and take in all the information and process all of those emotions that come with their truth before becoming reactionary. That takes so much emotional intelligence to do. To sit and say, I want to hear the truth, no matter what it is, and then allow someone to tell you that truth, no matter how unsexy or messy or devastating it is, and to be there to listen. It doesn't mean that you have to tolerate their behavior. It doesn't mean that you have to like the things that they're saying or that you even have to remain in their life. But to sit long enough and to control your own nervous system, to hear the truth and not become overreactionary, is a really hard thing to do for humans, right? That's a huge piece of the work that I teach in hybrid. No matter who's speaking and what they're saying, sitting there and holding space and working through your own internalized judgments, perceptions, whatever is going through your brain without imposing upon their process is a skill. It's a very important skill, and most people in society are lacking it. And then on the flip side of that, you've got the person who is so afraid of their own emotional experience that they are willing to tell lies or to withhold information because of the consequences of decisions they've maybe made that could disappoint other people. And sometimes there are things that we will do that, we can't control other people. We can't control their reactions. Like, there's definitely right or wrong. There are morals and values that we can have. But again, I don't have the context of what this person is afraid to tell another person. I don't know how major it is. I don't know how minor it is. I just know that if I'm reading into this question of theirs, how do I tell the truth when the consequences could be devastating, that they fear how the other person is going to respond, because in turn, however that person responds, let's say that person responds like super emotionally, and they're like, I can't believe you've lied about this. I can't believe you would do this to me. I can't believe you were even capable of this, or that you've withheld this information, or that I haven't known the real you or your real thoughts or your real feelings. Like, I can't believe this. I don't want to be in your life anymore. I know this can't happen. Let's say that that's how they respond. What I would ask this person who submitted this question is, are you willing to practice your emotional intelligence enough to sit with all that discomfort? Right? To sit with the fact that you cannot control their reaction, which is hard. I get it. And, you can't control their decisions and how they're going to react and how they're going to feel about it. It may absolutely be devastating to them, but you cannot control the way that they respond. The only thing that you can control is how you manage your emotional experiences. And what I would ask of you is, when you think of your highest self, how important is it to you to live a life of truthfulness, or live a life where you don't feel like you have to hold things in, or you don't feel like you have to live behind a mask? And I will tell you that I've had this conversation in different types of, context within the program, the hybrid experience. And I have told the women, like, when you're being vulnerable and truthful with someone that you love, whether that's a friend, a family member, a significant other, whoever it may be, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, coworker, teacher, boss, when you're practicing vulnerability and truthfulness and you're just saying your truth and your emotions and what's on your mind, and you can't control how the other person receives it, that is a very terrifying thing to do, but it's also so empowering. And I will just tell you that what I tell them is, it's going to feel like ass. You're going to feel more than likely like you're going to throw up or pass out, or that you would rather do anything else but tell the truth. I have been in that situation where I've been asked some very hard questions, and I wanted to just swallow and bury my answers deep, because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, because I didn't want them to be upset, because I didn't know what the outcome would be of being truthful. And so having to decide in that moment what I value within myself as a human being, I value not being a liar. I value being someone that can speak her truth. I have worked on for a good 8 years to eliminate as much of my people pleasing as possible, which means that I have to be willing to feel very uncomfortable emotions. I value emotional intelligence work and what it does for your life. And therefore, that means I have to be willing to feel uncomfortable and I have to be willing to feel like ass when I don't want to in order to do things that are going to progress me in my life, progress me along. And so I think the first thing about how do I tell the truth when I know that the consequences could be devastating is asking what kind of person you want to be in your life. I think that will tell you everything when you're really truthful and you sit and you reflect on that. What kind of woman or man do I want to be in my life? How do I want to show up? Because the way in which you show up is also the energy you're going to be greeted with in your life. It's also going to be the people that are attracted to you a lot of times in your life. So if you, here's something that I always have carried with me. If I wouldn't want someone to do it to me, then I want to make sure I'm not doing it to anybody else, them included. And I think about that in every decision that I make because I'm like, if I would not like if someone did this to me, then let me really think on that when it would feel really easy to do this to somebody else because I don't want to feel uncomfortable emotions. So I'm always thinking of what would the highest self version of Macy do? And I have to tell you that even in asking myself that, of course it's not easy. Like I said, I have been in some pretty vomity situations where I've been asked very painful, direct questions about how I felt about certain things. And everything in my body wants to be like, oh my God, I just wish you wouldn't ask me that. Or I wish you could just forget that you asked me and we could move on to another topic. Or you could ask me a whole different question and I'll answer that one. Maybe. Please don't ask me this question because I don't want to tell you the truth. It's going to devastate me because I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want whatever result it's going to create by me telling the truth, especially if it's not a good one or if it's an uncomfortable one. And in that moment, I've had to feel physically stomach sick ill to be like, but the woman that I want to be and the woman that I value as my highest self is no longer going to wear a mask, is no longer going to people please, is no longer going to withhold and suppress for the comfort and sake of other people. And in return, what I want in relationships are people who can be honest, even when it's painful for me. So I'm going to give you an example of this. This happened back in high school. So we're talking 14, 15 years ago. Okay, this has been a long time. I didn't have any coaching back then. So I probably would have handled this a little differently today as my adult self, my emotionally intelligent self. But back then I handled it the best way that I knew how. And it also taught me the type of friends that I wanted in my life and what was important to me, what was of value to me. So 14 or 15 years ago, I started dating my now husband. We're high school sweethearts. And at that time, I had a good, I would say 5 girls as best friends in my friend group. And one of my best friends had been broken up with by her boyfriend. And it was a super devastating thing for her. She really took it hard. I think she, in her mind, thought they were going to get married, and she didn't see it coming. So she was devastated. And I tried to support her as much as I could. And it wasn't long after that breakup that I started dating my now husband. And her behavior started to change. And the easiest way to keep this simple is I started noticing that she would be very flirtatious and her behavior just was not appropriate. And my husband at that time was friends with the whole school. He was Mr. Popular, right? He knew everybody. He was a jock. He was class president or vice president or whatever. He was very involved. He was the party kid. He was at the parties every weekend. And I was very different in high school. I was meticulous and studious and I did all of my homework on time and I didn't ever, miss class. I was never late to class. I never got detention. I'm Miss Goody Two-Shoe teacher's pet over here. Okay. My husband is Mr. I know everyone all the time. So I could tell that there was a certain point in time where my best friend was starting to catch some feelings, right? And I have known her for a really long time, so I was on to her and I was not happy with her behavior. And there was a point where she kind of crossed the line and said, I need help with boy problems. You should give me your husband's number so I can talk to him about my boy problems. And I told her absolutely not. And I wouldn't have minded any of my other best friends having his number because they weren't being weird, but her behavior was super weird and I could tell where she was trying to go with it and I was not okay with it at all. So fast forward, I was getting ready to leave for dinner. I'll never forget it. We were getting ready to go to Longhorn Steakhouse. Myself, my Oma and my Opa, which are my great-grandparents, and my Ma and my Papa. And one of my closest best friends that I've been friends with and still am best friends with to this day, I would tell you that she is probably the most truthful, honest friend I have, no matter how it's going to be delivered, no matter how painful the delivery may be. She is going to just speak her truth. And I love that about her. That I think is one of the reasons we are still so close to this day. I know that what I see is what I'm getting, and I know she's not going to withhold anything, no matter what it is. So I get a phone call from her and she's like, hey, what are you doing right now? And I said, we're getting ready to walk out the door. I'm going to go to Longhorns and eat with Oma, Opa, and Ma and Papa. And she was like, okay, great. Can I join you? This was not anything weird because we were like sisters. Okay. So basically she was the person that would be like, hey, I'm in your driveway. Or I would be the friend for her that's like, hey, I'm in your driveway. Actually, I just went into your house since your door was open and I'm just eating some snacks until you all get back. So we were really close. So she basically tells me like, hey, well, just wait there. I'm going to come over and join you for dinner. Do you think your mom and papa would mind? And I'm like, no, they're not going to mind. You know that they love you. And so, I hollered to my mom and I said, hey, can we wait 10 minutes? So-and-so is on her way over. She's going to join us for dinner. And they're like, oh, yay. They love her, right? So they're like, okay, yay. So as she's talking to me, she says, I have something that I really need to tell you, and I feel sick about it, and I don't really want to tell you. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just felt that tingly, awful sensation where your heart starts to race and your palms start to sweat and you feel like you're going to throw up and your brain starts putting some things together and it's like, oh my God, what is she going to tell me? Like, what's the worst case scenario? I don't know if I'm prepared. So I'm like, okay, just go ahead and tell me. And she was like, no, you're going to need to sit down. And I'm like, oh my God. So I have my heart racing. My mom and papa are so excited to go to dinner. And I'm thinking I have to hold it together right now and not freak out and not cry. And, I don't even know what she's going to tell me. I can only guess. And I just already know I'm not going to feel good about it. So she arrives to my house and we play it off like we're just so excited for dinner. And we go outside while we're waiting for my Oma and Opa, to come or whatever to our house and park and all that stuff. And so she gives me the down low of something that had just happened. She was hanging out with the friend that I believed was suspicious, right? And this friend and her had been, they had gone to the movies, they had gone for ice cream and everything. And at one point, this suspicious friend mentions my husband and how, she thinks that he's just really, really nice and also thinks that maybe he likes her because anytime she texts him, hey, he'll say, hey, back, so high school stuff, right? And she's reading into it and thinking he's just so helpful. If I ask him a question, he'll answer the question. So my best friend is listening to this and she's like, okay, interesting. Thinking in her head, I wonder if Macy knows about any of this. This is okay, interesting. So they get to her house. My best friend was dropping her off and the suspicious friend had texted my husband and had said something like, hey. And my husband texted back, hey, what's up? And in that moment, suspicious friend goes, oh, wait, I don't need to get out of the car yet. You might have to drop me off at his house. And my best friend is like, what? What do you mean drop you off at his house. Does Macy know that you're going to go to his house? And she was like, no. And she goes, I mean, he hasn't asked me, but like, just in case he does, like if he invites me over, I want to make sure like I haven't come home yet, because I'm going to have to lie to my parents and tell them that, you know, I'm at your house. So just let's wait in the driveway and then see what he says. And so she texts him back and he ends the conversation. There's like nothing to say. He's not inviting her over, right? And so she gets this super sad look on her face, my best friend says, and she's just like devastated. She's like, oh, I thought he was going to ask me to hang out. I guess he doesn't want to hang out or whatever. And my best friend is internally dying, she said, in this moment in the car, and just sees the look on her face and is like, oh my God, this is not good and this is not okay. So she lets her get out of the car. And that's immediately when she calls me and says, what are you doing? You know, and I'm like, I'm getting ready to go to dinner. Okay, wait at your house. I'm coming right over. So she's telling me this. And of course, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm so mad at both of them that I can hardly see straight. Like I am seeing red for both of them, even though I don't have like all the details from each of them. And so I can remember I had a pink Razor phone. So if you're new here and you have only had like high-tech equipment, you don't know that you have to like press numbers a million times to get the letters that you want in order to text. And when I tell you my fingers were typing at the speed of lightning, I had the longest, it was probably like a 20-page text on this pink Razor to my husband. And I'm sending him the whole scenario and everything that my best friend had told me. And then I send basically the exact same thing to my suspicious friend. Okay. And what comes back to me is everything that my husband texts me back is the same thing that matches my best friend who's sitting there with me. And the text that I get back from my suspicious friend doesn't match a single thing that my best friend or my husband had said. And at that point, I literally wiped my hands. I mean, I texted her back. I told her how I felt, that I didn't appreciate the sneakiness and the lying, and that I was done with our friendship, that was it. Okay? And I never spoke to her again. It's craziness, but I've never spoken to her again. And in that moment, and I often come back to this moment, I think of how, because my best friend felt so sick telling me that information. I mean, she was shaking, I was shaking. We're like two shaking dogs. You know, I'm shaking in anger and disappointment and fear and sadness and just disgust. And she's shaking because she's telling me something that she doesn't know how I'm going to react. She doesn't know what the outcome is. She doesn't know if this is going to be devastating news for me. She doesn't know if it's going to lead to a breakup or anything like that. And in that moment, it was really, really hard because for me, a friendship ended, a friendship that I had had for a really long time. And, you know, my other friends in this friend group were like, well, I don't want to be friends with her either. I mean, she just lied to your face. So if she's willing to lie and do this, like, that's not someone I want in my life either. And so it really, like, it broke up our friend group just like that in the snap of a finger. And you know, now looking back on it, of course she didn't want to tell me the truth because she knows what her intentions were. And that was, you know, they were slimy and sneaky and not cool. And she knew that I would be upset about it. But the truth was, I'm going to be upset about it either way. And same goes for my husband. It's like, I can remember, I think, texting like, you better tell me the truth. Like everything that you know and all the details that you have, I want all of it. And remember thinking, if there is one thing out of line, I'm also going to have to feel like crap because I know I'm going to end this relationship. I can't handle someone lying to me, especially when we had just started dating. And I knew from being best friends with my, you know, best friend for years, like she will tell me the truth no matter what situation, how painful it is. And I have carried that with me for the rest of my life. I don't want to be a liar in my own life. So anytime I fear vulnerability, I really have to coach myself on that. of how I'm going to show up and I'm going to feel vomity. And I also think about that when I'm allowing people in my life. How close people can be to me are really the people who have the emotional intelligence to be honest and vulnerable and truthful, even when it's messy. I can hold a lot of space for someone telling the truth and it being messy versus someone who is not doing enough work on themselves to show up in honesty. And again, I can give grace because I understand why someone would want to withhold, and I can understand why someone would want to lie because I get it. We're all human. We're not going to be perfect 100% of the time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make errors. There's going to be things we do that we're not proud of. But I think how much, we can own up to that and how much we respect another person to be truthful, no matter what the consequence is, really is our work when it comes to emotional intelligence. And when it comes to asking, who do I want to be when I'm being my highest self? Like, what kind of woman or man do I value being? And then operating from that position and from that version of yourself. So I know that this may not be the answer that maybe you're looking for, but I hope what this gives you is something to think about as you navigate whatever this truth is or this challenge is, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, deciding if you're just going to be truthful, it sets you free. It sets you free because you don't have to live a lie. And it sets them free because they get to decide if they, are okay with it, if they tolerate it, if they forgive for it, if they move on. Like, that's up to them, but you give them that freedom of making an adult decision, and you give yourself the freedom of being mentally and emotionally free from the lie. And it's just the normal thing is everybody's probably going to feel pukey. Everybody's going to feel some sort of uncomfortable emotion they don't want to feel. For you, it may feel devastating and like a loss and heartbreaking and sad and pukey. And for them, it may feel like anger or disappointment or rage. And the thing about it is we can't control what another person feels in their body based on what we tell them or what we're speaking. But who do you want to be in your life? And, in what ways could telling the truth actually set you both free in your own ways? And I would just sit with that and think of that and act accordingly to whatever that answer is for you, And so I do want to thank you for submitting this question because I think it's even vulnerable to have done that. And I apologize that I don't know the context of what it is. So I hope that this was helpful, but I really do feel like this episode is going to touch someone who is either harboring or holding things in that they're afraid to say to someone that they love, or, maybe someone who hears this will be able to hold space for another person when they say, hey, I want to tell you the truth, but I'm really afraid to do that. Remember that you can be the person that acts emotionally intelligently even when you're receiving someone's unsexy, messy, vulnerable truth. And I really try to hold space for people who have messy things to say and process it before I'm reactionary. That's another piece of my work. So there's the piece of my work of being someone who tells the truth, and the piece of myself that has the work of being someone who can be a recipient of truth. And I will just tell you that both come with messy emotions and both are not necessarily easy. But when I think of the life that I want to live and the standards that I want to hold for myself and the value and the morals and all of that I want to have for myself, that's how I want to operate. I just want to be the most emotionally intelligent version of myself that I can. And that means there's work on both ends of truth. Okay? So I encourage you that no matter what end you come up against that you know there is a way to be powerful in both, either by telling the truth or really holding space for the truth to be told in your life. Okay? I hope this was helpful. Thank you for being here. And what I wanted to say really quickly for this episode is, if you don't know about the Hybrid Experience program, this is a 6-month advanced emotional intelligence program where you don't have to choose what kind of coaching is best for you, because throughout the 6 months, you get the best of everything. You get one-on-one coaching with me. You get group coaching that is structured to teach you advanced emotional intelligence concepts. And then at the end of our 6 months together, you get an in-person retreat. And in 2025, we're going to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Now, here is what I want to say. Please go to MacyRenee.com and check out the Hybrid Experience tab, because there have been a few changes. One, I have officially secured our retreat villa. It is amazing. And something that came to me intuitively a couple weeks ago was the phrase live, laugh, play. I really think that as women, we can be very serious. We're super responsible. We take care of a lot of other people, and we tend to put ourselves on the back burner a lot of the times. And it's time for you to choose you and to take care of you and to think about what goals you have and get really clear on them, and then have the support to get it. But more importantly, I want you to feel like you can create a life where you're excited to live it and be in the present moments. And I want you to laugh like you've never laughed before, especially at this retreat. And most importantly, I want you to play. I want all the women in this next round to be able to reconnect with that healed inner child, the healed version of our inner child, and just laugh and play and build connections and friendships and love and support, and get coached on all the things that feel hard, and really feel like we have the tools to keep going and create a life we love. So that being said, I found the perfect villa that supports this, vision that I had of live, laugh, play. And I can't wait to show you. I'm going to actually show you on social media super, super soon, maybe even today if you're listening to this podcast as soon as it releases. And I just really think that this is an amazing program for women ready to up-level their life. So with that being said, with this villa that fell into my lap in the most perfect way, I had to shimmy the dates of our retreat a little bit, which means that I also shimmied the dates just a little bit of when we start this program. So as of now, enrollment will officially close on June 8th, 2024. You need to be signed up for this round by June 8th, 2024. There are 9 spots left. And due to having to shift the dates just a little bit so that we could secure this amazing villa, I will say just go to MacyRenee.com, click the Hybrid Experience tab. You will find the new start date for the program, which is still in July. It's just bumped back 2 weeks. And you will find the new dates of the retreat, which is 1 week later than the original date. Okay. So if you have any questions, reach out. But I would love to have you. If you are confused on whether or not you're ready for this program because it is advanced, please schedule a consult so that we can talk about it. And also ask me about the bundle. Ask me about the bundle. So you can email me, you can reach out to me on social media, ask about the bundle, and I will let you know a little something special that I have if you get in touch with me before April 20th, 2024. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at maceyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at maceyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.